My sister told her kids I was dead. Easier than explaining why we don't talk, she said when I found out I didn't correct it. Years later, her daughter found me on social media and sent a message, asking if I was a ghost. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. My reflection a ghostly, pale imitation of the man I used to be. The profile picture was a girl in her early 20s with my mother's high cheekbones and a smile that looked like a jagged memory. Her name was Elena. Are you a ghost? The message read. My mom said you died before I was born, but you have her eyes, and you're breathing in your photos. The weight of a decade crashed down on me. 10 years ago, my sister Sarah and I had reached the end of a long, frayed rope. It wasn't one explosive event. It was 1,000 paper cuts of resentment, addiction, and stolen money that eventually bled our relationship dry. When I finally got clean and tried to reach out, she hadn't just slammed the door. She had paved over it. I remember the day I found out. A mutual acquaintance mentioned that Sarah's kids, nieces and nephews, I'd only held as infants, thought I was buried in a plot upstate. When I confronted her, her voice was cold, devoid of the fire that used to define us. It was easier than explaining why we don't talk, she'd said. Easier than telling them their uncle is a liar and a thief. To them, you're a tragic story. Stay that way. And I did. I chose the silence. I grew into my ghosthood, building a life out of the ashes in a different city under a version of my name that felt less heavy. But ghosts don't stay buried when the next generation start digging. I spent 3 hours drafting a response. I deleted sentences about Sarah's cruelty. I deleted the I'm sorry's that felt too hollow for a 20-year gap. In the end, I sent a photo, an old Polaroid of me and Sarah as kids, eating melting ice cream in the bed of our father's truck. I'm not a ghost, Elena, I wrote. I'm just a man who got lost for a long time. Your mother wasn't lying about the version of me she knew back then. That man really did die, but I'm still here. The reply was instantaneous. Can we meet? I'm in the city for university. My mom doesn't know I found you. I need to know the rest of the story. We met at a small, dimly lit diner on the edge of campus. I arrived early, my hands shaking so violently I had to sit on them. When she walked in, the air left the room. She was the living embodiment of everything I had missed. The birthdays, the graduations, the scraped knees. She sat across from me, her eyes scanning my face with a terrifying intensity. Looking for the cracks in the tombstone. She has a shrine, Elena whispered, her voice cracking. A small box with your old watch and a funeral program she printed herself. She cries over it every Christmas. She mourned you for 10 years, Uncle Julian. How could you let her do that? How could you let us do that? The guilt was a physical blow, sharper than any craving I'd ever had. I realized then that Sarah hadn't told the lie to protect the kids. She told it to protect herself. If I were dead, I was a static, frozen tragedy she could control. If I were alive, I was a variable, a threat to the fragile peace she'd built. By staying silent, I had been her accomplice. I had let her grieve a living man, because it was the path of least resistance for both of us. I thought I was giving her what she wanted, I said, my voice thick. I thought the silence was a gift. I didn't realize it was a cage. For the next 4 hours, the dam broke. I didn't sugarcoat the past. I told her about the nights I spent in jail, the money I'd taken from her mother's purse, and the bridge I'd burned so bright it could be seen from space. But I also told her about the 3 years I spent working in a warehouse to pay back every cent, the therapy and the quiet life I led now, tending a small garden and waking up without the weight of a needle. Elena listened, her expression shifting from anger to a profound, weary sadness. She's going to hate me for this, she said, looking at her phone. But I can't keep a secret anymore. I can't be a ghost hunter in my own family. She stood up, leaning over the table to press a cold, trembling hand against mine. It was the first time a relative had touched me in a decade. It felt like electricity hitting a dead nerve. You're not a ghost, Julian, she said firmly. But you're not a memory either. You're just my uncle. And I think it's time you stopped haunting us and started hurting us instead. At least the hurt is real. The haunting is just empty. As she walked away, I pulled out my phone. I searched for Sarah's number, a sequence of digits I'd memorized and never dialed. My thumb hovered over the call button. The sun was setting, casting long, distorted shadows across the diner floor. I wasn't sure if Sarah would scream, hang up, or simply faint. But as I watched Elena disappear into the crowd, I realized that the easy explanation had cost us a lifetime. It was time to stop being dead. I pressed the button and waited for the ghost of my sister's voice to answer.